They shot her 13 times. She was disarmed.
Over the last 3 decades, the militarization of America's police has grown exponentially. Some law enforcement departments are beginning to look more like the armed forces than community police officers. That's not how domestic policing should operate. So why do the police often look and act like the military? Let's break it down. Here are some photos from a protest in June 2020, following the murder of George Floyd. Police have mine-resistant vehicles and camouflage uniforms in these photos because of something called the 1033 program. It's run by the Defense Logistics Agency under the Department of Defense. The program grants law enforcement agencies access to military-grade equipment that ranges from office furniture to grenade launchers. It was created in 1990 to help domestic law enforcement bolster counterterrorism and counter-drug operations, otherwise known as the War on Drugs. As the program expanded, the detrimental effects it had on domestic police and the communities they serve became increasingly clear. By 2013, more than 7,000 law enforcement agencies were participating in the 1033 program. Nowhere were the effects of that more clear than during the 2014 protests in Ferguson, Missouri.
This is actually kind of personal for me because I am from the St. Louis area. And seeing police departments, not the National Guard, but police departments, roll up to a scene where you have, for the most part, peaceful protesters, and them being engaged with police that now look like an occupying force was shocking.
But Wayne McElrath didn't just grow up near Ferguson. He actually went undercover to investigate the 1033 program during his time at the Government Accountability Office. In 2017, McElrath and his team posed as a fictitious federal agency to obtain $1.2 million worth of military-grade equipment. This ranged from simulated pipe bombs to night vision devices. Not only did McElrath expose how easy it is to obtain military-grade equipment, but he also revealed that the Defense Logistics Agency rarely checks to make sure that this transferred equipment is being used as intended.
What we find with the vast majority of items is that you encounter what's known as mission creep, where an item is provided for one purpose, but then because you have access to it and it is not being monitored well, it's being used for a variety of purposes that probably they shouldn't be used for. By supplying them military-grade equipment, it gives the perception to the police as well as the public that now they are no longer civilians, but now an occupying force, further creating the mindset of us versus them.
Domestic law enforcement agencies and the military have drastically different roles. The military is designed to protect the country from foreign threats. Meanwhile, law enforcement is meant to protect the citizens it serves and uphold their constitutional rights. When these roles are conflated, it can lead to what we saw in Ferguson and what we're seeing today with the protests surrounding the murder of George Floyd. Community police treating citizens like the enemy. In fact, a 2017 study found that domestic law enforcement agencies that use military-grade equipment produce officers who are more violent and who kill more civilians. SWAT raids and no-knock warrants also present issues surrounding militarization. These invasions allow domestic law enforcement officers to enter an unsuspecting individual's home, sometimes with battering rams or flash grenade launchers that can be obtained through the 1033 program. In fact, the American Civil Liberties Union found that from 2011 to 2012, the majority of SWAT deployments were used for low-level drug investigations. The report states that only a small handful of deployments were for hostage, barricade, or active shooter scenarios. This is what happened to Breonna Taylor on March 13th, 2020. After a SWAT team broke down Taylor's door with a battering ram in the middle of the night to execute a drug search, she was shot at least 8 times and later died from her injuries. And it turns out the police entered the wrong home.
Because of the war on drugs, we just saw this explosion in the creation of SWAT teams. And once you've got the team, you've got to use it.
This is Sarah Turberville, the director of the Constitution Project at POGO. Constitutional experts say that many SWAT raids violate the Fourth Amendment, which grants Americans the right to be secure in their homes and prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures of people and their property.
If your home is invaded by individuals that are in flak jackets and riot gear, and your door is knocked down with a battering ram for the execution of a search warrant for drugs, that certainly raises a question of reasonableness.
Militarization of law enforcement has contributed to the police tactics that sparked the protests in Ferguson and the protests surrounding the murder of George Floyd today. During a protest, the police's role should be to protect peaceful demonstrators. Instead, we've seen numerous displays of military-style force and equipment that's used to silence those exercising their First Amendment rights.
One of the most significant concerns with the use of military equipment by local police is the chilling effect it can have on people's ability and willingness to exercise their First Amendment right. People will certainly be thinking twice about their willingness to go out and challenge and protest whatever the government might be doing, particularly protesting police brutality, if they know that they could be facing police brutality with military equipment as a result of doing that.
It's not just the use of military equipment that threatens First Amendment rights. In some cases, it's their very presence. Heavy weaponry like tanks and riot gear only perpetuate the physical power imbalance between police and citizens.
They're protesting. It's what this country was built on, protest. But individuals exercising their First Amendment rights to protest and assemble, you're bringing out the most intimidating equipment that you can find, a little uncalled for. And is your purpose to protect that population or to intimidate that population so that they won't exercise their First Amendment rights?